Well, like if they did a study showing that the swine flu vaccine was safe and effective, and then they started a public awareness campaign telling everybody you need to take the swine flu vaccine because if you don't, there could be problems. It's safe and effective. Look, we did a study. Okay. Will some people turn around, or will people start saying, no, that's just propaganda, and then they'll start, I mean, like, do you think that even with accountability they can turn it around, or does it reach a point where it just has to keep mushrooming on its own until people, I don't know, get tired of it or something?
It has to be a more total reversal. It has to be, you know, we're talking not just a problem with a specific issue like swine flu vaccine. We're talking about a problem with the way government is done in America and how it serves or doesn't serve the people, and how it's accountable or not accountable to the people, and how the people do or don't have power over their own lives in the government. And it requires a concerted effort, a sustained effort over, you know, in a very broad area, by people on top and people at the grassroots to turn this baby around, to steer this boat back on course, if we want to prevent that sort of thing. Otherwise, you know, this Alex Jones thing is going to be here to stay, and it's going to keep rising. And, you know, the Glenn Beck thing, and what you're going to see is Sarah Palin in 2012, and, you know, Nazi America. Hi, old Palin. This is an exaggeration.
No, what do you think is the logical conclusion to that? Like, how far could it go?
I'm serious. It could go to fascism.
Well, I mean, I think there are... Yeah, I don't think there are any limits on it at all. I think that you have to start getting things moving in the other direction. And I mean, my biggest concern with what's going on in our government right now is that I see very little evidence that serious accountability is being brought back to the government. And right now, I mean, I think that's the biggest problem. People simply don't believe in the government. They don't, and then I think there's very little you can accomplish at that point. Once people have lost that certain, you know, baseline essential faith that, you know, government is acting in their interest. I think right now, I think people can legitimately look at the government.
I'm going to try to formulate this a way that I think might sort of be useful, at least is useful to me in thinking about it. In general, a government is run by elites, and the elites are concerned with legacy and power and, you know, things for themselves. They're self-interested in general, and that goes in general for most governments. And you know, the people who created our democracy and created the valuable institutions in our country have recognized this, and they've created institutions with checks and balances to try to facilitate the will of the people and the involvement of the people and a stable government, despite this sort of inherent human greedy nature. And you've seen that in successful, you know, liberal democracies throughout. There are systems that are designed specifically to work despite the greed of the participants. What you see now in America is a breakdown of those systems. You see systems that do not work anymore, despite the greed of the participants. They reply that if they were to work, they would require the goodwill of the elites, rather because they are not so democratic anymore due to things like regulatory capture. Historically, I think what you have seen when these systems break down is that the government then loses trust, or that the people then lose trust in the government. They lose faith in these institutions. They lose faith in their elites, and they start to see that the system is breaking down. What happens is that if this comes to a crisis, so to speak, a political crisis that results not necessarily in a revolution, but simply in a change in the power structure, what happens is that the elites who are self-interested are replaced by elites who are socially interested. So you have, rather than elites that are interested merely in their own legacy and perceptions of self and acquiring power for themselves, you get them replaced by elites that are potentially more dangerous because they're interested in social control or in social change. Of course, social change is what we need, but the problem is that a lot of times, historically, what this has resulted in is fascism. When you have the elites, because the system that maintains democracy is already broken, and so when you put elites into that picture, you have a system where a small group of people is interested in so controlling a larger group of people, the rest of the country. So the question is, if we come to a crisis in this country where the people overthrow the self-interested elites and replace them with socially interested elites, what are those elites going to do? What kind of elites are going to replace them? Is it going to be a conservative who wants to get rid of the immigrants and craft systems to do that, or is it going to be somebody who is interested in restoring democratic institutions? The political future, I think, of our country hinges on what happens when if that crisis comes, when unemployment is sustained for this high level of time, when people decide that they need to throw out the self-interested elites, that the system has broken. What kind of system will it be replaced with? It depends on the education of the people, the mindset of the people, and the people who they put in power. And of course, and this is what needs to be emphasized, is that when people say that power corrupts absolutely, they are right. That is what happens to people in power. So no matter what happens, the system has to be repaired. The systems have to be repaired quickly if they're going to be repaired at all, or else I think we're going to see a bad form of government, in my opinion.
Zach, anything else?
I would tend to agree with that analysis, and I think that if we don't start moving in the right direction kind of before the breakdown occurs, I think we are going to be in a lot of trouble, because I think there are a lot of things here that can serve fascism. There are a lot of institutions that, I mean, the militarization of the police, I think, is just one example. You have the militarization of the police. You have the huge kind of criminalization of the anti-war movement. You have the leaps that are being taken now in terms of data mining and information gathering on individual citizens. So with all of these tendencies, I think we're coming to a time where we need to be very clear about accountability and about personal freedom and about what the limits are, because we're in a very rapidly evolving time for human beings where we're engaging in a lot of experiments that in society and even in terms of our personal biology, that nobody really is keeping terribly close tabs on. And because of all these things kind of coming together at one time, it is a time to be very vigilant, because I think a lot of the systems that we have come to rely on are being tested right now. They're at the outside limits of what they can handle, and I think in a lot of cases they're beyond those limits. And we have yet to recognize that, and that is dangerous.
Okay, so in conclusion today on the Alex Jones Show, fascism is on the way, so look out for that. Thanks for watching Take Back Talking Points, and thank you, Zach, for being here today.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks, Brendan, for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.
Pt.11 2012.
Thanks for watching. Join us next week when we will be talking about regulatory capture. Why are so many executives in charge of regulating their own industries and who should be regulating them instead and what we can do about it. Thanks for watching.